This is Chapter 3 in your book on Programming Logic and Design. And today we're going to look at the structures that you would use in programming. And there are 3 of them. And the first thing I want you to do is pause this video, take a look at Figure 3.1, and it shows some confusing logic for how to wash a dog. And we call that spaghetti code. The first structure that we'll use is one called sequence. It's just very simple. We have steps in order that we follow, and we have tasks, so we follow them one after the other. The second structure is a selection structure, and in using this we ask a question, and the answer can either be yes or no, or you could imagine that it could also be true or false. And depending on the answer to the question, we either take one branch or the other. So in this example, if the question results in a yes, we do one process, and if the question results in a no, we do the other process. So if the answer is yes, we take one path. If the answer is no, we take the other path. And what you'll notice here is that after the decision, you do one process or the other. This sequence is also called if, then, else. And so we ask if a condition is true, and so that condition is what we check. And then we do one process, else, which means that it's not true or that it's false. We do the other process. And notice the pseudocode here, and the words that are bolded are if, then, else, and if. And these are key words. These are words that you would never use, for example, as a variable name. And they're used specifically in this sequence. Here's an example. If the fractional part of a float is greater than 0.5, then what we want to do is round up, else we want to truncate. There can also be just a single alternative selection, and that means when we ask a question, we can just take the yes path or the no path. So for example, in this one we ask, did it rain? If the answer is yes, then we empty the rain gauge. If it did not rain, then we don't take any other action. The thing I want you to notice on these alternative selections also, whether it's a single alternative selection or if you've got 2, is that both branches come together at the bottom of the structure. In pseudocode, this would look like if it rained, then empty rain gauge, end if. And you'll notice that what's missing is the else branch on this one. The third structure is a loop. The loop structure gives us a way to repeat actions as long as our condition is true. So for example, in this one, we would ask a question, and if the answer is yes, we do the process, and notice where it goes back to. It goes back to the beginning of the loop. We call this, in general, a while loop. The loop begins with a decision, and then the branch returns to a spot right before the decision is made. In pseudocode, this looks like a while. So we might say while, condition is true, do the process. And we have another keyword at the end of that says end while. Here are our structuring rules. A structured program includes only combinations of these 3 structures. So we can only use sequence, selection, or looping. You'll look back at the structures and notice that each one has a single entry point and a single exit point. And when we want to connect these with each other, we can connect them, but we have to connect them only at their entry point or their exit point. We can also put structures inside of structures. So when we ask a question and we have a while loop, inside there we can ask another question in which there might be another while loop. As an instruction for this, I want to point out that first paperclip on page 98 that talks about how you can visualize connecting these together and how they end up being a single structure, and that's if you can hold it by the top or the entry point and it remains or it retains its structure. I also want you to see the examples on figures 3.6 through 3.10 on pages 93 to 97. These are combinations of these structures and show you how you could write a much bigger program than just the simple one. And then finally, I want you to go through and look at the dog washing example after they've taken out all of the unstructured components and made it structured. Now, to write programs in Python that corresponds with this, I'm sending you to your online text to see specifically how a for loop is written. So your online text doesn't deal with the selection structure, but it does talk about a loop, and this is a for loop. We'll get into this much later, but there are different kinds of loops, and one is a while loop, and it depends on what question we ask in that decision, whether we go through that single time or whether we ask the question at the beginning or at another point. So this is a for loop that's shown in section 3.3. This is a fun section, and it will contain the question of the for loop and how you use that. And it will be a simple loop, but I want you to copy those 3 lines in section 3.3 and run them in your Python 3.4.1 shell. What you'll see in Chapter 3 in your online text is a turtle example and graphics, and it's just really fun. Right now I'm not asking you to really understand how the graphics get done, but just how to use them. So go through and try these programs. Again, try them in 3.4.1. If you try them in something earlier, you'll get errors. So on that example, I would suggest that you change the names to your own names and then ask them, instead of saying come to my party, ask them to stop by Delta 159 at 12:30. Thank you.